Live and festive in the Publix Holiday Headquarters studio at WSB.
2016 was a crazy year. Did we take our country back or just go deeper down the rabbit hole? The Monica Perez Show starts now. This is Monica Perez, your libertarian voice on News 95.5 and AM 750 WSB. Every Saturday from 3 to 6 is my normal time, and that is where what I'm doing today. It is New Year's Eve, and we are live taking calls. But my schedule does move around a little bit, so if you want to keep track of that, you can usually find it on my website, monicaperezshow.com. But I also have another website, The Prop Report, as in the propaganda report that I do with my producer, Binkley, here, where we actually do other shows for YouTube and iTunes, but I do post what's going on my WSB show. Also, Binkley, when people go there, you want them to do what? Subscribe to iTunes or YouTube, or what's the best thing?
Subscribe to iTunes, subscribe to YouTube, and right now, if you're at home, go leave us reviews and, awesome stuff.
I could not... Something went wrong with my mic, but that's okay. So that sounds good. Next week, I'm on from 5 to 7, and I will do my predictions for 2017, which is funny because it's usually a great show. I've had such fantastic predictions in the past. I predicted that legal pot would take the country. I predicted that heroin and the opioids would be big in the news. I predicted the Ferguson effect before it even had a name, which was that police pullback would lead to a real or perceived increase in crime. Had a lot of things like that. But when I look back at my 2016 show for the year, I did actually have a fair number of accurate predictions, but the big one, the one that's just absolutely the worst, is the one that everybody got wrong: who was going to win the election. So there, it really turned my worldview upside down. And I feel like I wanted to identify what the feeling was for 2016, what's like the zeitgeist of 2016. And I look at, I kind of try to find it within myself. I have some insights, but I want to know what your feeling is. 404-872-0750. 1-800-WSB Talk are our numbers. You could also tweet at me. I've got some great tweets at Monica Perez Show. Some great tweets answering that question. And I have to, I think one of them, I got one tweet that kind of reflected, I think, what I felt. It's from Suit and Tie Guy. I'm having to recalibrate my worldview now. I'm no longer certain the CFR set have the control over things that they did. The CFR is the Council on Foreign Relations. If you have this conspiranoid or conspiracy theorist cast of mind, as I do, you look at the Council of Foreign Relations, the Trilateral Commission, as the ones that are in control. And this election did kind of turn my worldview upside down. But I was trying to identify like my feeling for 2016. What's the meaning of it? What's the theme of it? And I had a funny insight last night, a kind of epiphany, where I was watching this show with my daughter. It's called Project Runway Junior. Binkley, do you ever watch these?
I never miss a Project Runway Junior.
That particular one, but are all the reality shows the same? Like there's a bunch of people that start out and then there's one winner at the end?
Pretty much.
Okay, so I watched that. I watched Top Chef. I never watched The Apprentice or Survivor, but I assume they're all the same. Somebody gets eliminated.
Right.
Okay. So I was watching this Project Runway Junior, and First of all, my daughter wanted to watch it, who's 12, and I was immediately like, what the heck? Because one of the contestants has his signature style is what he called bondage couture. So as a teenager, I know. I was like, okay. So I don't want to even have to explain that to my daughter. So we should actually have a whole show on how to deal with pop culture while trying to raise school-age kids, because I really think it's like deliberately subversive. In any case, I did go. We kept watching because she loves this show. We watched the regular Project Runway. And by the end of it, I'm talking to the TV, like, that definitely, the super short kid, he's out. There's no way he's going to make it. He's getting eliminated. And he was the worst. He was crying. Like, everybody knew, all his competitors, everybody knew he was definitely not going to make it. It was so obvious. And then, of course, in the end, he does not get eliminated. And I'm sure anybody who watches any of these reality shows has had the exact same experience, where you just know you're surprised. So time after time, you can see the pattern. And obviously during the show, they totally manipulate how you're thinking about it so that you can be surprised yet again. They can constantly pull the rug out from under you. And it was so funny because I could tell inside myself, like, this emotion that I was feeling was exactly the same as what I had felt repeatedly through 2016. And I kept getting fooled by it. Never saw that pattern. And it's funny because I was actually calling the whole year, the whole election cycle, everything. At first I was calling it the primaries a reality show. Then I was calling it the election a reality show. But I didn't see the ultimate parallel, which would be the surprise ending.
The bondage.
It was the what?
The bondage.
No. That was just an aside.
Okay.
No, it was the fake out. It was the bamboozle. And it even came down to during the election year, the polls were all wrong. But from the beginning, I was looking at Jeb and saying, he's going to win because he's the normal guy. And even if you don't like him, we've been taught since we were since as long as I can remember, only the normal guy wins. The fringe guy does not win. Take it from this Ron Paul supporter. You are told you can never vote for the outsider because he will never win. So I just didn't believe it. And then, so I got fooled with the Jeb thing. Then I got fooled again with the Hillary thing because it was like, okay, the outsider doesn't win. It's definitely the establishment person. That's just what we've been kind of just conditioned to think. And I was bamboozled again. So I feel like right after the election, my kind of how I would describe 2016 in one or two words was, upended worldview. But now, as I reflect on it more, I'm thinking bamboozle, reality show 2.0. I mean, I just really feel like, you could really go down the rabbit hole even further and say, because when I watch these shows, I think the fix is in. I think, well, obviously that kid really should have been eliminated, but he wasn't because they just want the show to engage you or whatever, not be so predictable, keep you on the edge of your seat. Then you got to wonder if there was even more manipulation during the election cycle than you otherwise would have thought. But what I really want to do, there's so many great fun things that we can do in looking back on 2016. So let's start with, what's the overarching feeling? What was the theme of 2016? 404-872-0750, 1-800-WSB Talk, and we can do, I've got lots of great tweets. You can tweet throughout the show at Monica Perez Show. Binkley, I want to know I want to hear some tweets, but I also want to know what do you think in a nutshell? What was your 2016 theme?
Harnessing the digital herd.
All right. That you got to unpack something like that. That's
I think
not
that the elites can now spontaneously cause social movements directly contacting people through social media before people can even predict what's going to happen.
Okay, so it's like AstroTurf, cyber AstroTurf.
Yeah.
So they said the Tea Party was AstroTurf. Pelosi said that was like manufactured. I think Occupy was AstroTurf. I think mostly everything's AstroTurf now, but you're saying it's like AstroTurf from the digital.
They can cause an explosion of any kind of movement they want by going directly to people through Facebook and Twitter and all of that.
Right. Okay. And what do you feel? That's a good one. And actually, it's a little foreshadowing for 2017 because I feel like this whole Obama's fight with Putin right now is him launching a cyber war, or really using a cyber war as an excuse for the next level, for Trump to take information control to the next level. So we're going to get into that next weekend on our 2017 show. I've got lots of calls I'm going to get to. Give me a couple of tweets, though. I really love
All right.
the pithy insight of the tweets.
Oliver says that Americans are putting too much faith in politicians. Hillary fans are devastated and afraid, and Trump's fans are rejoicing and feeling empowered.
Yes, I think that's true. And there was a hashtag 2016 in 4 words, which the really good ones were the Hillary followers who were just devastated. So let's get to that later in the show. Let's read some of those. They do counterbalance with some of the Trump ones, but it was really the despair that was coming across in the 2016. It was funny because it reminds me of when Obama was elected and Newsweek put on "We're all socialists now" was the headline on the front cover of Newsweek magazine, and it just sent the right small government people just apoplectic, like on purpose, I think, now in retrospect. So I see that now the left, it's their turn to have complete like seizures. Anyway, you got one more tweet for me, and then we're gonna
Yeah, B. Hutchell says that the biggest story of 2016 for him was that Obama is a pathetic leader, and the best thing, hands down, is that Hillary lost the election.
Yes, I got a lot of that. I got more Hillary lost than Trump won.
All right.
I mean, it was the ultimate who are you against. And the Obama thing, he really ended his presidency on, a note that I would not think he would want as a legacy. So I feel like he wasn't the guy who made the call on that. That's my feeling. But I've got want to get to your calls on what you feel was the overarching feeling of 2016. 404-872-0750, 1-800-WSB Talk. This is Monica Perez.
Monica Perez on News 95.5 and AM 750 WSB.
It is 41 degrees outside the studio, a 5 on the Mellish meter. Weekend weather is brought to you by Shoemate Heating and Air. And we are talking about 2016 in review. What was your feeling about it? Like, what was your emotion? I feel like it was such a jam-packed year. Was it a turning point? Was it to open up a new way of looking at things for you? Give me a call at 800-WSB Talk. I'm going to go to Joseph in Woodstock. Hi, Joseph. You're on with Monica. I cannot hear you, Joseph. Say it again. Uh-oh. Well,
all right, here you
go. Joseph, there you go. Start over.
Okay. Thank you for taking my call. And let me tell you that I think 2016 was a year of change. Mm-hmm. I did get the election right.
You did?
Yes, I did. I felt like there was a really deep sense of unrest. The substantive issues were not being discussed. No real move forward plans for the things that concern me and a lot of the people that I know. It was just a lot of focus on minority issues. Well, let's just say emotional issues, emotional social issues, right?
Yep.
And so, but my life itself took a lot of changes. Had some family stuff, changed a job for better, different things like that. So I really see it. It's all about change. And Monica, I'm telling you that I think it's going to be better. I think there's a lot of people that are fearful, but I do believe that it's going to, as we move forward in the future, we're going to have a better, a better experience as Americans. And I think we're going to, being from a business perspective, we saw a lot of money sidelined. Companies were not investing in the economy and the workers because of the uncertainty with cost. And, I think that's all going to change. So I think it's positive.
Yeah, that is a good point. Thank you very much. And I love the positivity. So it is so hard for me to remain positive because I look at things like I look at the election. I've always thought the election was rigged. And so, or at least that there was a lack of integrity in the elective process. Not the Electoral College, not the popular thing. I'm not worried about Russian hacking. I just think that we are manipulated, highly manipulated, whether it's the way polls are told to us or even at the ground level. In some cases, I remember when Ron Paul was running in the primaries, you could find examples of how his people who voted for him, their votes did not count. So I've always been skeptical of the election process. And when Trump said that the election could be rigged, we all knew it was true, that it could be rigged. So I always try to scratch the surface on it. But I do want to stay positive. I do want to have a positive outlook about it. So give me what you got. But if it isn't positive, I'll take anything that you want to give me about what your feeling was for 2016. Give me a call, 404-872-0750, 1-800-WSB-TALK. I'll get to your calls after this and to your tweets at Monica Perez Show. Throughout the show, I'm on till 6. I want to go through some of the best hashtags and tweets that I got talking about 2016. They're so short and sweet, and it'll really stimulate your thoughts. So if you want to tweet at me, at Monica Perez Show.
Live and festive in the Publix Holiday Headquarters studio at WSB.
You maniacs! You blew it up!
Monica Perez on News 95.5 and AM 750 WSB.
Libertarian Voice on WSB every Saturday from 3 to 6. But it does move around a little bit, so you're going to want to keep track of that through my website, monicaperezshow.com. But next week, I'm going to be on from 5 to 7, Saturday, January 7th, to launch my 2017, where I look at what's coming, what's to come in 2017. Not great on 2016. I did get a lot of predictions right, but not the one that mattered most, which was who was going to win the election. I was reeling over that. My social conditioning, my mindset, I was so trained to believe that a guy like Trump could never win that I just ignored all the signs and I didn't see it coming. And I look back on 2016, I kind of have a feeling, an emotional response to that it felt exactly like when I watch reality shows. And in the end, I'm surprised by the winner. And I get surprised like half the time, which you would think by now you would see the pattern emerging, but they're really good at throwing a monkey wrench into it. So anyway, that was the kind of feeling I got from 2016. But I want to know what you thought was the meaning of 2016, the feeling, the zeitgeist, the spirit of the times, as they call it. 404-872-0750 if those lines are full. 800-WSB-TALK. I also have lots of great tweets at Monica Perez Show. Binkley, my producer here, is going to help read some tweets. What you got?
Where did Dean go? Sees more things operating than just what's on the surface. He says that there's more at work than just the U.S. establishment here.
Oh, yeah. So if you tweet with me, with us, if you direct it at specific people, you can have a real conversation. So I know Dean's down in the rabbit hole with me. And that's one of the things that was crazy about this election. It was so obvious that Hillary was the establishment choice and that the establishment runs the world, that when Trump won, there's really only two possible answers. One is that they really don't have a grip on elections or the media or whatever like they thought they did, or on our minds through the media. They don't actually have that grip. Or the rabbit hole's a little deeper than we thought, that maybe their machinations are more sophisticated, or somebody else is running the show than who we might have thought. I'm open to all of those possibilities. Anything else?
Yeah, Liberty Warrior says that the power of the world is changing, not just in the U.S. People all around the world are waking up to globalism. And he says to watch the spring elections.
Yes, because in France and Germany, there are going to be more elections. So he thinks that this is what you see is what you get, that this is a response, a backlash against globalism. Again, I have this feeling, yes, that may be true. But what might also be true is that by throwing up these, what is being called by the mainstream media, nationalist tendencies, especially in Europe, where they had such problems with that, and they always kind of persisted over the decades. If you show nationalism as winning, you might just get that population, especially in Europe, to overreact and usher in more regionalization, even calls for world government. If they think the U.S. is wacky and causing trouble with Russia and that we're the ones at fault, they might embrace what the Vatican calls a true world authority. I mean, that's what I'm saying. I think the rabbit hole might be even deeper than I thought. But what do you think, not just about how opaque, how hard to see all of this is, but what just your gut reaction to it? 800 WSB Talk. I'm going to go to some calls. Pat in Woodstock, you're on with Monica. Hi, Pat. Pat.
Hey, Monica.
How are you
I
doing?
love your show. Can you hear me?
Yes, I got you.
Oh, good. I love your show. You give so much tremendous information. First of all, I grew up real near Washington, D.C. I'm almost 73 years old. And I really embraced the whole idea of, the politics all through the years. So this was quite overwhelming. I said it was extremely stressful. However, I don't mean that always in a bad way. I think some of the stress was like kind of like this. Oh, really? It was like, oh, wow. Because I don't think we've seen anything yet for the energy that's going to happen. I'm very, very hopeful.
So do you think that this was really the people taking the country back?
I absolutely do. I think what we hear is all this. What about the snowflakes and we have to have counseling and let's get our hot chocolate out. Give me a break. I mean,
yeah, I mean, that's certainly that kind of attitude does disempower those people. I mean, you have to be dumb to fall for that because you're not getting anywhere by coddling yourself. So
no, not at all.
So
but
maybe
I'm very excited. But when I say stressful, I just mean sometimes when good stress can be kind of overwhelming. It was and it wasn't just 2016. It was, it was even before. I mean, it's been going on for so long. I think we got tired. And then all of a sudden, when all this happened, the energy came back in. It's awesome.
Yeah. Well, I have to say, it did kind of jumpstart my cognitive processes when when I walked in on the night of the election and my son, my 11-year-old, was like, Trump is winning. I still didn't believe it. Then the next day I woke up and it happened, and I really was scratching my head for a while because my understanding of how the world worked was really challenged by that. And yes, if shock is stressful, and it did clear the cobwebs out, even no matter what you think about whether you like or do not like what happened, it certainly gets you thinking, gets you wondering the true nature of power in the world today. I'm going to Jerry in Conyers. Hi, Jerry. You're on with Monica.
Hey, Monica. Thanks for taking my call. I'd like to start by saying I am more excited and encouraged about the future of the United States of America than I have been since Ronald Reagan. I did vote for Trump. It did not surprise me. People they're just fed up.
What do you think is going to be the best thing that comes out of this? What makes you most excited?
The best thing is being written right now, in my opinion, and that is Obama and the Democratic Party showing how completely inept they are and how self-serving they are. And I think that's what they're really afraid of, the depth of the exposure that they're fixing to endure.
There's one thing, though. I hear you, and I must say, it was very amateurish, it felt like to me, that Obama should go out with such an unnecessary poke in the eye to Russia. The evidence is not very compelling, and I even read the original text of his executive order with the sanctions and stuff, and even there, it's totally a nothing burger, in my opinion, yet the media is totally blowing it up. But yeah, I didn't think that was a great atmosphere or whatever legacy for them. But there's one little thing about this that makes me think it works for the Democrats. They were about to, if Hillary is what the anti-war movement calls Hillary, because she just had no bones, no compunction about killing people, upending. She giggled at having Gaddafi killed. I wonder what happened with Chris Stevens. I mean, you just have to wonder. And Obama dropped 20,000 bombs on Syria and Iraq in 2015 alone. And if they were the ones who had to keep prosecuting what I think is going to be an escalation of war in the Middle East, they would have lost forever their position as the anti-war party. I think there is a chance that them sitting this one out will at least save them for that, just save them as having an anti-war reputation.
Yeah, very possibly. I think, I really think it would have been the end of the United States if Hillary had gotten in there. And I guess I'm one of the ones expressing, I did not want her in there, but I voted for Trump.
Yes, I understand.
Against Hillary.
That's different, yeah. So like most people, I would say, of all the tweets I got, almost all of them were at least Hillary lost. Like there was the hashtag of hashtag 2016 in 4 words. So at least Hillary lost was most of it. And so some people did not voted for Trump while holding their nose. Some people were really for it. But yes, if your view is that they would have just lost half the country to hopelessness, that you would have had to have a new party, the Republican Party would have been gone forever, that this action actually preserves the two-party system. And if you're like me and you kind of think that that's been so corrupted that it's really a way to keep us in control, a way to keep us having faith that the hierarchy is still under our command, then this was actually, in a way, good for the establishment. Unless, and this is a real possibility that I'm opening my eyes to, unless there really still is that level of a power struggle at the top between just the simple Democrat, simple Republican, that model. I had rejected that, and I'm still kind of thinking there's more to this than we see, but it's definitely a possibility. I mean, this is keeping me thinking. I'm going to Mark in Atlanta. Mark, you're on with Monica.
Hey, Monica. I'm so excited to be able to talk to you. Well, I'm going to probably be brief, but what I think is most compelling about this whole election and everything, and so surprising, is that the media was so interested in Trump and really built him up at the beginning to help him get through the primaries. And the whole time they had the ammunition to destroy him. And then when it came time, I guess, to release the tape or whatever, I think that they were too late. And I think people basically reject everything that's been going on with a whole host of things, with Obama, with Hillary, with just the corruption and the cheating and the scandal, with the Democrats, let alone, I mean, I know they're trying to play up the Russian thing, but gosh, the real story is the whole CNN getting along with the Democrats and the
what the emails actually said. It's not like it's not like the Russians made it up, and that was the problem. It wasn't fake; it was real. But I don't think the Russians did it anyway. I think it was an inside job.
Oh, I think so too. But I think what's so amazing is the media are so besides themselves because they didn't get a pick. They didn't get to do what they would normally do and try to really influence the elections. And you can see how much they've done in the past and how the curtain got pulled back and they look so bad.
I know, but I think that there's a chance that they knew exactly what they were doing and that for whatever reason both sides of the aisle, Fox and CNN, acted like played into Trump's selling point that he was anti-establishment, and that in itself, plus just the round-the-clock coverage, was what got him elected. And then you got to wonder why. I mean, that's when you really start scratching your head or have to get the flashlight out. Why? What if that is a scenario? Because I'm still not ready to abandon the idea that the media has control and an agenda, that they have an agenda. They're sophisticated. They use their power. So you're not going to, I can't get there, but I'm going to keep taking calls. Hopefully you can persuade me. 404-872-0750. 1-800-WSB Talk, and you can tweet at me at Monica Perez Show.
Monica Perez on News 95.5 and AM 750 WSB.
Holding steady at 41 degrees outside the studio. 32 is the low overnight. Weekend weather is brought to you by Shoemate Heating and Air, and we are talking about what was the spirit of the times. What was the mood, the feeling meaning of 2016. Give me a call at 800-WSB-TALK or 404-872-0750. I'm going to Angela in Mableton. Hi, Angela.
Hi, Monica. I think that the spirit of 2016 can be summed up by the words of my favorite high school bus driver. She would be driving down the road, and the kids would get all, riled up, and things would be going on in the back. She would stop the bus. She would turn around, and she would scream at the top of her lungs, "Enough is enough, and too much is nasty." And I think that's what the average American pretty much said at the ballot box this year.
That is a great, great analogy. I love that.
And, the thing that's so ironic about it, though, is anybody but Donald Trump, he cannot be considered the average American. He can't be considered as someone who's held traditional values. But that shows how far the left and the Democrats have gone toward, I guess, social engineering or whatever, that the main problems of the country were being ignored, and all of this other stuff was being put to the forefront of, traditional American, what you believe is wrong, what is right is wrong, what is wrong is right. You need to get on board or just shut up and sit down. And we said, yeah, no, not so much.
Well, also, I remember from previous years when Ron Paul was running, I had the show and people would call and they would say the number one argument against voting for Ron Paul was that he could never win. He is unelectable. And I think the term unelectable has got to go in the trash bin.
It does. It does. And it's so funny because I remember the years of Ron Paul, and I remember at first thinking, okay, this guy's kind of wackadoodle. And then as you listen to him and you see the things that unfold, I thought his campaign should be called Not So Crazy Anymore, huh?
Yes, not your crazy uncle. Or your crazy uncle's got a chance.
Right.
I think I believe an elector actually voted for Ron Paul. So Ron Paul actually got more electoral votes in 2016 than Gary Johnson, if I'm not mistaken, who was on the Libertarian ticket.
Oh, that's too bad.
Isn't that funny? It's just funny because it shows you that I have always been a vote your conscience person. I just feel like it's my vote, and if I want to use it to game the system, then use it to game the system. If I want to use it to vote my conscience, vote my conscience. It reminds me of when you sit at the blackjack table and other people get mad at you if you don't vote according to the odds, if you don't hit or stay according to the odds, which I actually am one of those people, like my husband doesn't do it. I'm like, you've got to obey the rules. Anyway, but not in voting. It's your vote. But I've got lots of more great calls coming up. Hang on. 404-872-0750, 1-800-WSB-TALK, or you can tweet at me at Monica Perez Show.
Live and festive in the Publix Holiday Headquarters studio at WSB.
This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
This is Monica Perez, your libertarian voice on News 95.5 and AM 750 WSB. Saturdays from 3 to 6 is my normal time slot, but it moves around a lot because of UGA sports. So if you want to keep track of when I'm on, check out my website, monicaperezshow.com, or my new website, The Prop Report, as in the propaganda report, thepropreport.com, which I do with my producer, Binkley, right here. And I'll always post when I'm going to be on my WSB show, on that site. But we also do another show on YouTube, on iTunes. Binkley, tell me again. My microphone was off last time. My headphones weren't working right. Tell me again how people can help us spread the word on that.
Go to the website, subscribe on iTunes, click on the Apple, tell your friends, share it with your friends if you like it, and leave us a rating, a review on the iTunes site. That helps us move up in the rankings, the search engine. So the upside of that show is we can really get into depth on the big issues of the week. We don't have to stop and start a lot. The upside of this show, of course,
is we are on the best talk radio show in the country, WSB, and we get all the great calls from the audience. So I've got a lot of calls teed up, but plenty of room on the lines, 404-872-0750, 1-800-WSB-TALK. We are talking about the feeling of 2016. What was your takeaway from 2016? But I also tweeted out some stuff. I want to get to some tweets at Monica Perez Show that address kind of what were the best and worst things of 2016, the highlights and the lowlights of 2016. And I'll even take calls on Obama's legacy, the highlights and lowlights of Obama's legacy. I bet that we might take the entire time talking about that if we only have one show to do it. But we have lots to cover today. I want to talk about the biggest stories of the year and what the agenda they are serving, what they were there for, how they were spun. I want to talk about that. I want to talk about I had some predictions that did come true in 2016. I missed the big one. A lot of people did not miss the big one, that Trump won. I just had my blinders on. So that's what my big thing about 2016 is that try not to have the blinders on. But boy, you can just go deeper and deeper into the rabbit holes if you try to find the truth. And sometimes I think that's like what the internet is for, what the information age is really for, is to make it impossible for us to really know what's going on, which is as much of a way to kind of neutralize the democratic process as it would be to take our information away, to muddy it up with disinformation and all that stuff. Very hard to navigate the information waters. And I think 2016 made that very clear. And of course, they did launch the fake news back and forth, dialectic, psyop, whatever you want to call it. We're going to talk about that stuff next week. January 7th from 5 to 7. I'm going to talk about what I see coming in 2017, and that stuff is total information control is a big theme, in my opinion, for what's to come. But I want to get to your calls, 800-WSB-TALK, 404-872-0750. Mike in Duluth. Hi, Mike. You're on with Monica.
Yes. Throughout his campaign, he said he was going to appoint a special prosecutor to prosecute Hillary. I'm not going to hold you to the words you say. You know more about that political arena than I do. What is your best guess of what it is that changed his mind? I'm going to hang up and listen to your answer.
Okay, Mike. I'll tell you, when he said in that, I think it was the last debate. So the whole time I'm always like, this looks like a show. It looks like a reality show. I wasn't alone in thinking that. I mean, it wasn't completely off the wall. There were such drama, there's such drama, not even a lot of substance. It was mostly drama. So, but when he said to her, just threw it out there, when she said something about, I hope you don't get elected, and he said, because you'd be in jail. And he really looked like he meant that. And I'll tell you, that was my moment where I was like, wow, maybe this thing is for real. Maybe I'm getting it wrong, and he really hates her.
Yeah.
So when he immediately tried, so then she came out. Do you remember, Binkley, we talked about this on our show, The Propaganda Report. When it happened, Hillary came out, she did her concession speech, and then she had, as far as I know, she came out one time officially after that at like the Children's Defense Fund, where she looked like death warmed over.
Oh, yeah, I mean,
they're making
horrifying
jokes. Yeah, it was awful. So I said, why would she come out looking like that? There has to be something. And within, I think, 24 hours, Trump said she's been through enough.
Right, and she'd been up all night running around the country spray painting swastikas on the side of walls and stuff.
Because you think all that. I agree with you. That stuff is just meant to make Trump supporters look crazy. They're the classic false flags where George Soros operatives are spray painting stuff on the side of black churches to make it look like Trump supporters are actual Nazis. So, yes, for her, so then he immediately said, she's been through enough. And I felt that was a coordinated effort, that was something that was it seemed a little stagey. Now, that opens up a can of worms that I really don't feel like climbing into, in that, if that was staged, what else was? I mean, I really cannot bring myself to think that Hillary wasn't totally shocked and devastated by this. But who knows if they said, hey, we know you have a lot of stuff on this guy. Everybody has stuff on everybody. She was Secretary of State. She probably has stuff on everybody. We'll throw you a bone, keep you out of jail, or probably both the carrot and the stick. We'll give you a bunch of money somehow through your Clinton Foundation and also keep you out of jail if you just don't tell people, don't make this harder than it needs to be. So I think like the protests and all that kind of stuff are more in the realm of smoke and mirrors, distraction, the popular vote, the Electoral College, even the Russian hacking is to keep our eyes away from what might be real stuff. And I'm not accusing anyone of anything. I'm just saying everything just smacks of fluff to me and surface stuff. There's probably stuff behind the scenes that affect all these high-level political actors, and I think at that level, you don't even get to that level if you're not able to be blackmailed, so that there's always something they can hold over your head. There's always wheeling and dealing to do with the shadowy characters who wield, I think, the real power. So that was way further down the rabbit hole that I planned to go. But, that's where I live, and I try to climb out of it after the election.
That's where you're comfortable.
Yes, it's just what makes sense to me. And my only question now is, like, is there another rabbit hole, that I'm not seeing? Anyway, that will unfold shortly during the next administration. I'm going to John in Atlanta. John, you're on with Monica.
Yes, hi, Monica. Enjoy your show. Thanks a lot. Wanted to... we were talking earlier about the media and Trump and how the media is so focused on him. But, at the end of the day, the media exists for one reason, or primary reason, and that is to make money. And Trump, he really brought in much higher ratings than any other candidate, and they were forced to focus on him to just keep the ratings battle going with the other TV stations.
Don't you feel, though, that CNN has always kind of put their agenda above the ratings in the past?
Yeah, I can understand what you're saying. I think they can still get high ratings by really trying to sensationalize the news and sensationalize it in a way that really meets their agenda. So I think they can do both of those things. But
to have Trump in office does probably not serve their agenda, right?
Well, no. In some ways it might, because it gives them a lot more fodder now to really sensationalize.
Yes, that is absolutely true. It is absolutely true. Yes.
But, the analogy I love to use, I'm from L.A., and one of the things that happens in L.A. a fair amount, not a lot, but, there are car chases. And the TV stations will break in to show a car chase. And I liken Trump's candidacy to a car chase, where everybody had to tune in to watch the chase because you weren't sure what's going to happen. You're waiting for something to happen. The media, really, quite honestly, is waiting for a massive, spectacular car crash at the end so they can have a lot of people watching it and enjoying it. And they were waiting for the Trump car crash.
Yeah, the train wreck. My husband calls it the train wreck. Everybody loves a train wreck.
And it never came. And the media, they'll patch out to something like that to follow it and to try to get people to tune in. But at the end of the day, they really became their own worst enemy.
I am 6 months ago or 3 months ago, I would have said there's zero chance of what you're saying. Really, that's how I thought about the mainstream media, especially cable news on the left and right. Now I'm thinking there's like a 10% chance that they got bamboozled. I still feel like there is another layer of this thing that we can't see, but I think the proof will be in the pudding. Thank you very much for your call, John. Larry, hang on. I'm going to go to a quick break, then I'm going to get to you. I want to also talk about the best and worst of 2016 and the best and worst of the Obama presidency. What is his legacy? 404-872-0750, 1-800-WSB Talk. You can tweet at me at Monica Perez Show.
Monica Perez on News 95.5 and AM 750 WSB.
Rain tomorrow with a high of 55. The weekend weather is brought to you by Shoemate Heating and Air. Recapping 2016, what did it mean for you? What were the best things, the worst things? If it was Obama's last year in office, that was your highlight, what was his legacy? What were the best and worst things about his presidency? 404-872-0750, 1-800-WSB Talk. I'm going to Larry in Atlanta. Hi, Larry. You're on with Monica.
Hi. Thanks for taking my call. No doubt to me, the zeitgeist, as you say, of 2016 was sadness and depression. And I think the reason for that is because people are so tired of politicians lying to them. And I think what happened with Trump is that everybody was so delighted to hear words coming out of this guy's mouth that included truth now and again, like that business you were talking about earlier. You better hope I'm not elected because you're going to jail if I do. Things like that.
But it's not true, right?
Things like that.
That's what's scary about that, is that I don't think that was true. That was the highlight of his campaign, and I feel like he's not going to follow through on it. I mean,
well, Yeah, it's like you say, we'll find out as time goes on. But one thing I do know is that, okay, you listen to two politicians. One of them says the sky is green. One of them says the sky is red. Somebody's lying. And I think that's what people hate about this whole process. We don't know who's lying. So finally, there's a guy that might be telling the truth. He's got all the money in the world, so that's not an issue. He has plenty of power. That's not an issue. What motivation does he have to lie to us?
Right, but here's the thing. If the money and the power was a lie, and there is an argument that it was, you didn't see his tax returns, there have been books written about him not really being that rich. I'm not trying to be a spoiler. I'm just saying that I thought the same thing. Like, what if I were a billionaire and I was 70? I would definitely not wade into this. The only reason I would do it is if I needed to solidify or establish or expand a legacy for my descendants. And so that's why I thought if this actually enhanced his money and power, or Kushner, who is the father of his descendants, you know what I mean? If you start getting a little more cynical about it, you have to find the answers to those questions. But I get where you're coming from. You're right. If there's any chance that somebody was telling the truth, it definitely wasn't Hillary.
Right, exactly. And I will say, yes, maybe his motivation was to solidify something for his descendants. But on the other hand, maybe he just wanted to help people.
Maybe. And, I'll tell you this. If your constituency, whatever you want to call it, if you're looking at people who are catering to like a Democratic base, a big government base, you're going to get more of that. If you're lying and you're catering to a small government base, that guy has to proceed with caution. So even if it is a setup, at least he'd have to take his foot off the accelerator a little bit. 404-872-0750, 1-800-WSB Talk. We are talking about how you feel about 2016. What were the best things, the worst things? What were the best things or the worst things about the Obama presidency, about that legacy? So we're going to get to your calls and your tweets at Monica Perez Show after the break.
Live and festive in the Publix Holiday Headquarters studio at WSB.
It's a madhouse! A madhouse!
Monica Perez on News 95.5 and AM 750 WSB.
I am your libertarian voice on WSB. Saturdays from 3 to 6, though that does move around a little bit. Next Saturday, I'll be on from 5 to 7 giving my 2017 predictions. So hopefully that'll be a little better than... Actually, my last year predictions were pretty good. I've gotten a lot of emails that I spotted some of the trends, the heroin, opioid thing, the increase in crime, real or perceived, a lot of things. But I was surprised by the election, not me and everybody else, but usually I can see the forest for the trees, not this time. So what was your impression of 2016, the best and the worst of 2016 for you? Let me know. You can tweet at me at Monica Perez Show. Give me a call right now, live, 404-872-0750, 1-800-WSB Talk. Binkley, my producer's here in studio. What are my Twitter followers saying about the best and worst of 2016? Any responses?
Yeah. Alan J. Sanders, he says that one of the worst things of 2016 was the rise of the snowflakes.
He has WSB's own. So, yeah, the rise of the snowflakes, that is a great, I love that expression, trigger. All those things were new expressions from 2016, super funny. What else?
He says that the best of 2016 was watching Trump school politicians to show them that you don't have to cower under the PC police.
That is a great lesson for everybody, even if no matter how deep you want to go into the rabbit hole, take what you see as what you get for Trump or not. The fact is, I feel like if the liberty movement, which is where my ideology sympathizes, they can, instead of retreating from like Ron Paul's position of honesty and principles, even when he was literally booed for reciting the golden rule at a debate, a presidential debate, Ron Paul was booed for it. But he stood alone on that stage and he shouted down the audience in a presidential debate. And you would think that's the kind of thing that would make you, quote, unelectable. But, of course, Trump was elected. So no matter what, you have to say, I find it empowering and certainly give you courage. You got one more, and then I want to get to these calls.
Yeah, Where Did Dean Go says that the most annoying thing in 2016 was all this talk about fake news as though if it were a new concept.
Because fake news was the mainstream media.
Exactly.
Right. I mean, that's the thing. I've basically said this is fake so many times. My mother, I'll talk to her and she'll like, what do you think about this? I'm like, that sounds fake to me. She's like, everything's fake to you. I'm like, not everything's fake, just what's on the mainstream media. If you wanted to talk to me about anything, even the local news, I'm fine with. It's just that cable, national cable news that makes me... That's the fake stuff, in my opinion.
I have a running list of 30 news stories, and I'm just barely scratching the surface that the mainstream media was headline news in the mainstream media that turned out to be, a hoax or just a lie.
But even if it's real, even if you said there was never any such thing as a false flag or a hoax or any of that, the narrative is, I would say, 99% of the time, and even that 1% is attempted, like Rahm Emanuel style, to always use it. And that Saul Alinsky, I know you were reading a book, Rules for Radicals, which I also read. And my takeaway from that book was always make lemonade, no matter what the news story is, no matter what your plan was, no matter what actually happens, even if your conclusion, your recommendation is logically the opposite of what you should be thinking. Like with 9/11, the answer was invade Iraq. Who didn't do it? That. It's just whatever. We need to invade Iraq.
Yeah.
So for me, you can, for no big outlet, no mainstream media hits 50 million eyeballs is wasted on, we're going to just tell you what's going on and you can decide how you want to use that information. That's never how it's used.
Yeah, right. They deliver conclusions, and if people are satisfied with those conclusions, it doesn't matter if they're all fake, because people will never go back to investigate and find out if it's true or not.
I remember when Shep Smith said something like, he might have actually said, so Putin killed all 300 people on that flight that went down over Ukraine. And I'm thinking, I was like...
One by one.
The day it happened, within a couple of hours, I was like, okay,
right.
Do you think that is, court of law stuff? And, of course, no one was ever like, we're issuing a retraction. No,
that's not how it works. A spontaneous investigation and conclusion.
Yeah, and so, anyway, I don't even want to go down that road, although I think we'll have to go down that road as the Russia stuff, Ukraine, Syria starts bubbling up to the surface in 2017. But that is a topic for next week's show. I'm going to Mike in Marietta. Hi, Mike. You're on with Monica.
Hey, Monica. I was just enjoy your show, by the way, but I was just going to have to admonish you just a little bit about talking about Trump going back on his word and stuff. I mean, the man's not even president yet, and you've already decided he's not going to do anything. I think he's going to have a Department of Justice to do the things that need to be done to those who need them done to.
I think I was specifically talking about, didn't he say he was not going to prosecute Hillary, or did I misunderstand that?
Well, when's the last time a president prosecuted anybody? I think there's a whole department that does all that. So, I mean, it's not like I'm not going to go after her. There's a whole organization that'll be up to.
Do you think anyone will ever go after her?
God, I hope so. I got to say.
I know. I mean, people, that's the thing that really drove it, was that it was such an insult.
Well, yeah, because, I mean, if you and I did anything that even looked like one of the itty-bitty things that she's done, we would already be, talking, on different sides of plate glass.
Yeah, I mean, I hadn't seen anything like that since LBJ, who, if you dig deep on LBJ, he does give the Clintons a run to their money.
My mom always told me she felt like he was behind JFK's demise.
And there was some other thing that was actually a murder that was really in the pipeline as going to come out, bubble up to the surface before he took office. That just disappeared from the media.
I don't know about that. But
yeah,
look, I love your show. I just wanted to throw that out there. Don't whip the boy before he's done it. Just because he looks like he's done something or going to do something, don't whip him before he actually does it. So
yes, thank you, Mike. There's absolutely no call I enjoy more than a friendly correction or a friendly disagreement. I absolutely love to exchange the ideas. I kind of want to change the paradigm of talk radio, or it doesn't have to be hostile, even if you don't disagree. And besides that, Mike's right. You want to give the guy the benefit of the doubt, and I absolutely feel like the proof will be in the pudding, and we can just check it out. This is going to be a very, very interesting time, and you got to admit it wouldn't have been better, under Hillary, no matter what. I lost a call. Joe was calling earlier. He didn't care if it was rigged. He's happy Trump won anyway. And my feeling is, yeah, if they had to give you a victory, if they felt, even if it's completely rigged, if they felt they had to give you a victory, maybe that in itself is something to be happy about. I'm going to Ken in Powder Springs. Hi, Ken. You are on with Monica. Ken.
Hey, this is Ken.
Hi, Ken.
Yeah, I guess what I wanted to say is, this is really, I've been thinking about this a while. And as far as Obama, he's going to go down as probably the worst president ever. Now, I had Bush there, and I think he's surpassed him by quite a bit. Now, with that said, I'm not even worried about that because, that's going to be his legacy. Now, as far as Hillary goes, she had no business even running. With everything that she did, she was not even eligible to run. And all she did with this server, the whole idea was to cover up her crime, everything that she was doing. It's just, it amazes me that anybody would even vote for something like that because she was bought and paid for.
Yeah, and the funny thing about Hillary that had occurred to me, but don't hang up, I want to ask you something about Obama, that people compared Trump as like he wasn't a politician.
That's what I like about him. He tells you straight up. He tells you exactly what he thinks, and I don't like that.
But he was
doesn't talk
also
around.
He was sorry, honey. He was also charming and charismatic, whereas she actually never was that. She did not rise because of her being a politician like almost everybody else ever did. She was the first lady, and then that opened the door to other things for her. So she was never this charming person who made you feel good, feel empowered, feel like. So she was already somebody that you weren't going to be predisposed to like. I mean, that was something weird to me. Like Trump almost has more of that. He has more of that quality where he could generate a cult of personality where she could never, ever do that. Finish what you're saying, then I want to ask you why you think Obama will go down as the worst.
Well, just look at his record. Look at what's going on in the Middle East. It's a bee's nest in there now. What he did in Iraq, sure, Bush went in there, and I didn't like that. But at least it was stable when he left. The way Obama pulled out of there, all these young men that died over there, is basically a slap in the face to them and their families. Something that Bush wouldn't even do. You know, I mean, when he went in there, he was sitting there, and he had his daddy and whoever else, the governor of Texas, I believe, that pretty much got him in the guard, and he never even showed up. So it was something
that was bad
he
too.
Would not even do.
I will say though, there was a flip side to Obama's behavior, bad behavior, devastating legacy in the Middle East. For me, it's not pulling out of Iraq. It's this secret war that he had, not so secret, I can't believe people don't even know about it, against Syria, to arm those rebels who were really mercenaries from other countries. I read in the Council of Foreign Relations magazine, Foreign Affairs, which does not get more establishment, that the Obama administration dropped 20,000 bombs on Syria and Iraq in 2015. I mean, that's a silent war that spread terrorism and refugees like wildfire. So I think it's a little bit of a, what do you call it, like a red herring or a canard, like a false narrative to say that Obama pulling back. I think that's a narrative used by people who want, not you, but people who want the media elements or power elements who want more war to say, oh, pulling back caused these problems. In my opinion, it was his pressing what was an illegitimate war that we did not want without really getting any kind of congressional approval that created this problem and the inevitability for more war no matter who was president next. So I think the rabbit hole's a little deeper on that. I'll take all calls, though, and whatever your view, 404-872-0750, 1-800-WSB Talk, or you can tweet at me at Monica Perez Show.
Monica Perez on News 95.5 and AM 750 WSB.
It is 41 degrees outside the studio, and skies are overcast. The weekend weather is brought to you by Shoemate Heating and Air. I am going to Michael in Atlanta. Hi, Michael. You're on with Monica.
Hey, Monica. Happy New Year's Eve to you. How you doing?
Happy New Year's. Good. How are you doing?
I've got a comment and a quick question for you. Okay. My comment is probably the worst thing that I had to deal with in 2016 with the Obama presidency was his ridiculous Obamacare. Mm-hmm. It did not help me. Each and every year I called, I had to wait on the telephone for over an hour. And the very first year that I called, and they told me each year after that, you don't qualify, you don't make enough money, and this is supposedly supposed to be for people like me that is not working, but only part-time and can still get insurance. Mm-hmm. Total garbage. But this one moron, the very first year, says, I'm sorry, you don't qualify for insurance or a subsidy, but would you do me a favor? And I said, what? And he said, will you call me back? Here is my phone number. When you become successful this year so that I can get you signed up for this. And I said, I'm so glad you asked me that. And I said, hell no! You honestly expect me to call you, you idiot? And I hung up the phone on him.
Super frustrating.
I could not believe that this moron asked me that.
And the problem with the government is, unlike private enterprise, you can't quit. You can't opt out. You can't go somewhere else and just vote with your feet. That's what's so frustrating. That's just this steady march to Marxism. Okay, what's your question?
My question is related to the election, and the reason I call you so much, but I've never asked you this. Are you a practicing Catholic?
Oh, my goodness gracious. Wow. I am a practicing Catholic. I go to Mass.
I'm assuming that you did not vote for Donald Trump. You voted for your Libertarian candidate.
I didn't
vote for Hillary because she's...
No, I didn't vote for anybody with a check mark. I just wrote in.
Okay.
So, right. But interesting. I don't usually mix my politics and my religion, but that's a fair question. What the heck? So there you go. Threw me off a little bit. I am going to play a game with Finkley after the break. Real, fake, what's the agenda for the biggest stories of 2016? This is Monica Perez.
Live and festive in the Publix Holiday Headquarters studio at WSB.
Please take my hand. Now open your mind to me. Please open your mind. Open your mind. Open your mind.
This is Monica Perez, your libertarian voice on News 95.5 and AM 750 WSB every Saturday from 3 to 6. When I can get it, when there's sports, I sometimes move around. So next week, I'm going to be on Saturday, January 7th from 5 to 7, talking about my predictions for 2017. Today is December 31st, 2016, last day of the year. Happy New Year. Hope you have a great night. I'm looking forward to having some fun. I always have like a massive diet in January, so this is a big night for me.
Really?
Yes, I can't. I always have to. The holidays just set me back like 10 pounds, so I always have to hit the ground running.
I mean, tonight's a big night. What are you going to do?
Just to eat a lot.
Oh,
My
okay.
husband has a 14-pound Wagyu
A what?
roast, which I do not know. He's just ridiculous. It's like he's cooking for an army. And then it stays in the fridge. I'm supposed to eat it like all week long, which I'm not doing this time. Just put it out there, not eating the leftovers every day. So that's it. Nothing, not big by like single people standards. I have to be home with my kids in bed. So, but I am looking forward to it. And I love this show of the year because I look back on 2016. This is my producer, Binkley. Binkley, it was an interesting year, and we also have a show that we do on YouTube and iTunes called The Propaganda Report. If you want to check that out, the website's thepropreport.com, and you can get all our episodes on there. And Binkley, we actually did, our most recent one was a list of like every major event, the top 40 events of the year. We went through what we thought was fake, what we thought was real, what we thought was spun. We're going to scale that back. I want to do something like that now, but I want to just there was an AP poll, Associated Press poll, where people listed what their top 10 events of 2016 were. And what I want to do is I want you to read those to me 10 to 1. Maybe we could do rapid fire or whatever. And I'll tell you not so much if they were fake or real, but what agenda item they are serving. First, I do have, want to get to Tony, who's on the line. I want to talk to him first. And I will take calls about if you have an event from 2016 you want to get my opinion on what the agenda is. Give me a call at 404-872-0750 or 1-800-WSB-TALK, or you can tweet it at Monica Perez Show. Let me talk to Tony in Dawsonville. Hi, Tony. You're on with Monica.
Hey there. The worst thing in 2016 was the Democrat Party was stupid enough to run Hillary and not run Joe Biden. And the best thing is just darn elections over.
Yeah, it is. It is. Thank you so much. I will take the calls on what the best and worst thing of 2016 was at 404-872-0750 or 800-WSB-TALK. It was really a fatiguing year. I was getting sick of it because I always do the news story. The biggest news stories of the week is generally what I talk about on my show. And I was just getting burnt out on the election stuff. The themes in general were kind of, I think that there's like certain number of agenda items that the mainstream media will push any news that supports those agenda items. So I don't think you're really getting a full view of where people are. Like there's one thing I always talk about, that how the media manipulates people, the government, the institutions, academia, all that stuff, how it manipulates you. But there's an element of what people are really feeling and what their real ideals and principles are, what their priorities are. You can't suppress that totally. And I feel like the big agenda items are meant to shape how we think about what people are feeling. And maybe the Trump election, certainly one of the themes of the Trump election was a lot of the bigwigs, the pundits, missed the boat on what was really driving this country. You know, I do always think there's more to what we're hearing than sees the eye, that meets the eye. Certainly the fact that they were talking about that as the takeaway lesson makes me wonder what they're trying to accomplish. But that's peeling the onion one layer too much. So, Binkley, I want, if you would, let's go from 10 to 1. Throw me out the event or the theme or whatever, and I'll tell you what I think the agenda item was.
All right. The first one, number 10, is Hillary Clinton's emails.
You know, that one I totally thought was just meant to make it look like she was battling some bad press, but it was just a big nothing burger, and it was. But I feel like, it was never as bad as some of the things I think she actually did. Like having a private server wasn't as bad as what the emails I thought were actually going to say. But I see now, I think a big part of the Hillary email thing was to set up a cyber war with Russia for the next administration.
Yes. Do you want to hear mine on that?
Yeah.
So that I don't say global government for every single one of these. Some of my answers might be a little bit odd, but this one I'm going to say similar to what you said, a limited hangout to distract attention away from a global network of pedophiles.
That's not similar to what I said. But that is interesting because what you're talking about is the Jeffrey Epstein thing, which a lot of people in the mainstream media think that the Jeffrey Epstein pedophile scandal is the same or in the same category as the Pizzagate scandal. They might be, but the difference is Jeffrey Epstein was actually convicted of it and went to jail for it, and he was one of the founders of the Clinton Foundation.
The Clinton Global Initiative. They do differentiate between those two.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. Good. I like to be corrected. So I guess there's some of that. Yes, I think there might be some of that. Certainly a lot of diversionary stuff in there. Okay, keep going.
Number 9, the Supreme Court.
That came up on several lists. So Antonin Scalia died, and of course, at first you have to wonder if it was murder or what. And my mother, who prays to Antonin Scalia now.
Wow.
She prays to him. Get your mind around that. Him and Mother Teresa, now Saint Teresa of Calcutta. So, but she pointed out that he died after a big meal on a Friday during Lent, which she thought was a narrative that was hard to buy. So see, sometimes having the inside scoop. Yeah. So I don't know. I really never got to feeling like I had a conclusion about that. One stumps me.
I don't know, maybe to launch Justice Ginsburg's rap career.
I don't get that joke.
Saturday Night Live, a character, Justice Ginsburg, she raps on the show.
Oh, goodness gracious. Well, I don't stay up that late, thank goodness. What's next?
Syria.
The Syria thing is a false narrative to get us involved in geopolitical maneuverings. Some people call it Pipelineistan, that it's all about the oil and gas, or at least about world power. It's not about saving the citizens of Syria from their own government. That's not what it's about. And so for me, the big thing about Syria is a false narrative to justify intervention on behalf of the military-industrial complex, not on behalf of the Syrian children.
I agree. The agenda is to create a pawn to create a humanitarian pretext for war.
Keep going.
Number 7, the Democratic Party email leaks.
Yes. I guess they were meant to sink Hillary, which I did not see at the time. And also, obviously, that's the big one that launched Pizzagate, I think. Or no, the Podesta emails launched Pizzagate. But this is the stuff that is being used to justify, even by
Russia, right?
Innuendo, the Russian conflicts with Russia.
Right. This is the evidence they're using. This is the evidence they're using for fake news, for alt-right, for Russia, for everything that they're doing to demonize.
But it's not evidence.
I know. There's no evidence. It's an illusion, but it's what they're using. Number 6 is the attacks on police.
Yes, that one, which is hand in hand with another one that's on this list, Black Men Killed by Police is how they word it, and the attacks on police. To me, that's the black versus blue dialectic, and it's meant to take our eyes off the fact that what used to be the story was the militarization of the police that had us united against some unconstitutional directions they were headed in, the military equipment they were getting, and to make it a racial issue so that we are divided as a population. So we think of it as only a black problem, and so that people on the right then sympathize with the cops and want to, will say, maybe take, not focus on the constitutional issues because it's been elevated to this emotional side-taking thing. So, but ultimately, it's for federal, national, central control of the police and further erosion of the Bill of Rights.
Yes, and it's also a lever that they have. Anytime they want to pull that lever and use it as a divide and conquer race war tactic, they have it there.
Oh yeah, and that gets your rioting going, social media triggers. It's all. Anyway, so we're halfway through the list. Let's take a quick break. Come back for more. If you have an agenda item you don't know about, give me a call, 404-872-0750, 1-800-WSB Talk, or you can tweet at me at Monica Perez Show. For anything that happened in 2016, you want to know what was the real purpose of giving it so much press. This is Monica Perez.
Monica Perez on News 95.5 and AM 750 WSB.
Tomorrow's high, 57, low, 40 overnight. The weekend weather is brought to you by Shoemate Heating and Air. So what we've been doing, Binkley and I, have been going through the biggest stories of 2016, according to an Associated Press poll, and talking about what we think the agenda items are, that this stuff doesn't get massive press like that if it isn't to serve a purpose. And I'm talking about the big, like Associated Press, for example. And they're not going to cover something around the clock if it doesn't serve an agenda item. But I'm going to start, we did the first half of that, and then I'm going to do the second half at the bottom of the hour. But since it is the last day of the year, I want to kind of reflect back a little bit on so many famous people died in 2016. It was actually kind of crazy. And the ones that, for me, I found the most interesting or will remember the most fondly are probably not the ones who got the most airtime, who got the most coverage. So I just wanted to throw out a couple of honorable mentions. So for my mother, I will say that Mother Angelica died. My mother loves Mother Angelica. So I have to give a shout out there. My number one was Alan Rickman, who I know as Dr. Lazarus, but from Galaxy Quest.
You mean Hans Gruber from Die Hard?
Yeah, so since I'm a massive nerd, I remember him from Galaxy Quest, which to me is like one of the best movies of all time. It's like a parody of Star Trek. My husband's like, that movie's so dumb, I can't even watch half of it. But anything sci-fi. So yes, he's Hans Gruber from Die Hard. I don't even know.
Greatest villain of all time.
Really? Was it from Die Hard 1? I feel like I must have seen
Die Hard 1, yeah.
All right, I guess I didn't see it. Maybe I'll watch that tonight. Muhammad Ali, who I had the occasion to meet, which was pretty cool. Not this year, but he died this year. And the actor who played Kato from the Pink Panther movies, again, this just shows my incredibly dumb sense of humor, that he used to leap out. So Inspector Clouseau would come home, and this guy would leap out of the closet. He was his manservant and just beat the crap out of him. Karate chop him. So I was going through this list of 50 people whose names I recognized for having died in 2016, and the only one who drove me to YouTube to start watching videos was Kato attacking Inspector Clouseau. This is just a testament to how dumb it has to get for me to take a break from world news. But so what have you got?
What have I got on celebrities that died?
You can give me anything you want.
Well, Prince was one of my favorites.
Oh, yeah.
I liked Prince.
Yep.
Can I give a shout out to my brother, speaking of family celebrities?
Absolutely.
It's his birthday today. He turns, we'll say he turns 18. He's celebrating an auto age down in Athens with his family.
What's his name?
Brian Binkley.
All right. Happy birthday, Brian. I hope you're all listening. I hope they're all giving us a little toast.
Oh, I'm
giving
sure
them
they
a
are.
Shout out. All right. Well, we're going to finish up our agenda items for the rest of the big stories of 2016. You can chime in if you have any questions. 404-872-0750, 1-800-WSB-TALK, or tweet at me at Monica Perez Show.
Live and festive in the Publix Holiday Headquarters studio at WSB.
Look, just put your little hand back in the cash register and give me my $2.75 back, please, Brad.
Monica Perez on News 95.5 and AM 750 WSB.
See, that's in celebration of Brad Binkley.
That's just my favorite clip.
Isn't it the best? Who joined the show in 2016? Do you remember that? Do you think people know what that clip is from? Do you
Probably.
know what that clip is from?
Yeah, it's Dazed and Confused, right?
No, Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Oh, right, yeah. It's the guy working in the French fry place, or the hamburger joint.
Yes, that's you, Brad. So, well, Brad, you're going to have to give me some more of these rapid-fire AP poll top stories of 2016, and I'm going to tell you what I think, or we can talk about what we think the agenda items are for these news stories. So my premise, just in case people missed earlier in the show, this is Monica Perez. I'm the Libertarian on WSB. And we've been taught, for me, anything that gets round-the-clock worldwide coverage from the mainstream media they do not waste the power of that by just telling you objectively what they think are the most important news stories and let you figure out what they mean to you. That I do not think is what's happening. Whatever it is, whether it's real or fake or a false flag or a genuine event, it is spun by the media for an agenda purpose. Anything that makes the top 10 is going to have an agenda purpose. That's why it's pushed. So we got through the top 5. If you haven't heard those, you want to go back and listen to the podcast. We always post those on our new website. thepropreport.com is in the propaganda report. You can hear that probably early in the week. And let's keep going. We're down to number 5.
Number 5, the worldwide terror attacks.
Okay, I predicted that. So I do a prediction show at the beginning of the year. I predicted that a couple of years ago, that our allies would start experiencing terrorism in their homelands, which was not clear that was going to happen. It has happened, and it seems to me, I thought that it was 100% to get them on board with war in the Middle East, for us to invade Syria, to stop the flow of terrorism and refugees. Of course, I think it's the opposite, that actually going in there and blowing up those countries creates the problem. But I thought it was that they would experience terrorism just to garner support for those wars. Now, when I read especially about Germany, it is crystal clear that the number one goal, at least right this second, for those terrorist attacks being either created or spun instead of just ignored and taking the power out of it, they're pumped up constantly to get the Europeans to buy into the total information state, the total surveillance state. That's what I think it's all about.
I'm going to go with to keep people in a constant state of fear and anxiety so they remain dependent on mass government.
That goes into something we talked about, I think, on episode 4 of the Propaganda Report, which you can get online at thepropreport.com. But it's that we talked about how the strategy of tension was something that was actually used by the Allied powers after World War II in Europe to actually create false flag attacks where real people died to discredit the communist politicians, and that ultimately the goal was to discredit the democratic process in total so that the military could get a greater role in governance going forward. I haven't ruled that out as something that's on the table going forward in the West.
Yeah.
So, okay, keep going.
All right, number 4, the Pulse nightclub attack in Orlando.
Okay. First of all, I did reiterate what the X-22 report, which I haven't listened to in a while, but at the time I remember him saying 2016 would be the year of the lone wolf, and boy was he right. He really was. I actually wrote an article about the Pulse nightclub massacre. The article was about an article that laid out the agenda items. So it was a Wall Street Journal article right after Orlando happened, laying out what we need to do in the wake of Orlando. And there were 5 items in it. You can find the article. Maybe I'll put it in the show notes of this podcast when it comes up. It was unbelievable. It was so, like, he didn't even wait for the street to open up again in front of the Pulse nightclub. A Council of Foreign Relations member wrote, one, we need to make illegal these assault weapons, rifles that are semi-automatic. Disarm Americans is the agenda item. A big thing with Orlando was we had him. The FBI was investigating him, but that dang due process really screws us up. I mean, we should be able to take people's rights away without due process. So it was to create this class of pre-criminals who are under surveillance, who don't have rights. He goes back to it and says this guy should not have been able to work as a guard or buy guns since he had been investigated by the FBI. So that's doesn't have to be convicted, it has to be investigated. That's what the watch lists are about, the no-fly list. It's about being able to identify you as a pre-criminal and start taking away. And I feel like that's going to fold into the propaganda stuff, to the censorship, to fake news, because real people, this is a big theme. Real people get hurt because of fake news, social media. It's going to be about thought control. All that stuff is going to go into pre-criminal status, which will have a real impact on your liberty. And then overall, I think expanding the police state. The guy calls for more guards and metal detectors at clubs and malls. This is all coming out of Orlando, the Orlando massacre, and also to escalate the war in Syria. He says we need to drop more bombs and send more troops into Syria to defeat ISIS, which, of course, it creates ISIS, it spreads ISIS. So they take these agenda items, they apply them to any kind of event they can manufacture or hook onto, and then you see the march towards the totalitarian state. That was a huge one. I'm not going to take that much time for anything.
Right.
Did I hit them all? You got anything else?
Yeah, well, it also did wonders for the shooter's father's YouTube page traffic. Probably got a lot of subscribers out of it.
That guy had been, this is why I wonder what the real stories are. That guy had taken selfies at the White House, and then they kind of tried to drown out that suspicious fact by having him in the background when Hillary was speaking at a rally. It was like it was kind of like the way Pizzagate, true or false, drowns out Epstein, true. This guy behind Hillary drowned out the fact that he was haunting the White House.
Right. He's an odd bird, that's for sure.
It was super crazy. So, okay, keep going.
Number 3, the black men killed by police.
That we covered a little bit earlier, hand in hand with attacks on police, black versus blue. I'm just going to, in a nutshell, say it's meant for us to all cry out for central control of policing, either because you think they're out of control or because you think they need more authority.
Right. It's strange that they differentiated those two on the same list in the top 10 when they're, so tightly connected. It's kind of like the Black Lives Matter, All Lives Matter debate that people have there.
Which is now the Blue Lives Matter.
Blue Lives Matter, right.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
Number 2 is Brexit.
That one for me is a tricky one. I feel like it's possible that, because it's obvious that George Soros and the power elite want Europe to be a regional entity. That he had actually been on record saying, we will continue to promote Russia as an enemy to unite Europe. Maybe this idea that there's a nationalist faction within their own societies will drive these people to actually ultimately, when the pendulum swings back, not only embrace a regional Europe, but kind of bring a even more kind of world government, true world authority. So we think the pendulum is swinging one way, and yes, maybe it is, but if it swings back, it might have more force.
Yeah, I think that one of the purposes of Brexit was, speaking to that, was to put the idea of world government in the collective consciousness so people are more aware of it.
Yeah, could be, because it is. Globalism, nationalism, it
right.
is.
It's an alternative to the nationalism that they are telling people is going to lead to violence.
Right.
The last one, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Number one on the list of top 10 news stories of the year are the U.S. elections.
Yes, I have to agree with that, as the story could be 80% or the top 9 could be Trump winning. I'm going to, this is a deep thought, so and we don't have time to get like 1,000 calls in response to it, but I'm just going to throw it out there, let it hang in the air. We're going to talk about it a lot over the next 4 years. But here is what I think. I'm going to characterize it as right cover, left cover. That the whole two-party psyop, the two-party paradigm that left and right really represent us at the top is preserved by this. And it does two things. It allows us to have, I believe Trump has promised, I don't think there's any mystery about this, bigger spending, more debt. He says it's not going to be more debt, but I have a feeling we're going to have more debt, higher interest rates. There'll be some right cover for encroachments on the Bill of Rights. When the Republicans are in charge, there's less pushback when the Bill of Rights is not as staunchly defended. It's just called right cover the way left cover is used, so that somebody like Obama can drop 20,000 bombs on Syria and Iraq in 2015. And this is, if you haven't heard it on my show, you probably haven't heard it at all. That's left cover. The left will cover up for that. And, I'm down in the rabbit hole. So for me...
Small bombs, right? Didn't you tell me they were small bombs?
Oh, I was with a driver. Somebody was driving me around, a professional driver, picked me up from the airport. And he said, yeah, but those were very small bombs. And I just thought, if you think of 20,000 small bombs on a small country like Syria, it's like, whatever, 100,000 bombs here. Is there any bomb small enough for us not to be like, hey, man, stop dropping bombs on my country? I don't know. So the whole thing, I'm going with preserving the two-party psyop.
I would agree with that. It compels people to participate and validate a corrupt system, thus maintaining the illusion.
Yeah, and it did restore faith in our system. And maybe that's warranted. Maybe the fact that they had to do that meant that they had just gone too far. I don't know, but I'm definitely back down the rabbit hole. I got out of it for a little while, just like, whoa, what happened
You
there?
can't resist the rabbit hole.
Because it's the narratives on the surface just don't make sense. We're going to wrap it up after the break. This is Monica Perez with Brad Binkley.
Monica Perez on News 95.5 and AM 750 WSB.
Showers and storms likely with a high of 64 forecast for Monday as the work week begins, but that could change. So stay tuned to WSB for weekend weather brought to you by Shoemate Heating and Air. So we are wrapping it up, the last show of the year on the last day of the year. It is New Year's Eve, so Happy New Year's to you all. Hopefully 2017 will be at least a little less stressful than 2016. I feel like I lost more sleep in 2016. Worried, shocked, thinking too hard. Maybe 2017 will be easy. Maybe we'll get some softballs for that year.
No thinking required in 2017.
Yes, no thinking. Wouldn't that be great? That's maybe why I like these dumb shows like Galaxy Quest and the Pink Panther, because I just need to stop thinking once in a while. I'm going to do that real soon because I am just going to kick my shoes off for New Year's Eve. We got through the biggest stories of the week, 2016, and talked about what was on the agenda. If you missed it and you want to hear the podcast, go to our website. Binkley and I do some off-air shows, but we also post the podcast of this show from WSB on our website, thepropreport.com. That's prop as in propaganda, thepropreport.com. And you know what we should do, Binkley, is I did not get to my biggest predictions of 2016, what I got right and what I got very, very wrong. So I think we should do a show on that, like a YouTube show, iTunes show, whatever, Propaganda Report, and post that maybe in this week to come.
All right.
Does that
sounds good to me.
All righty. And then next Saturday, January 7th from 5 to 7, we'll do on WSB predictions for 2017. Hopefully I can at least get the big ones right. And that's what we'll do. So I want to take one more call. Reggie, you've been on hold. I want to give you the last word on the last show of the last day of the year.
Right.
Hey,
Happy
Reggie.
New Year to you, Monica.
Thank you.
Long time no hear.
Yes.
I would like to know. I would just like to know what do you think about the mainstream corporate news media bringing up or using the term fake news to describe Fox News Channel and all these websites that have come onto the scene as of late or come down the pike as of late.
I don't.
All over the internet.
Yeah, I don't think that they're using it to describe Fox News or the mainstream stuff. I think that what they're doing with that is trying to turn on its ear, because what we used to call anybody who realized that the big national cable news stuff is so agenda driven that we would call that fake news. I mean, you could see stuff. I remember investigating various events and finding within one news source contradictions of the actual story without retractions. They'll retract that they got somebody's middle initial wrong, but they don't retract that they got that Shep Smith said that Putin killed 300 people in MH17. You know what I'm saying? So for us, who were already kind of jaded by the mainstream media, we called that the fake news. So on the one hand, I think they're trying to flip the tables on that, but on a much more serious basis, I saw this coming before the election. I thought it was going to be Hillary who shepherded it in, but maybe the Democrats have just run out of runway when it comes to cramming down the Bill of Rights. That the next phase of kind of total information control is going to be censorship. And all this fake news stuff is just crying out for a kind of Ministry of Truth, a central scrutinizer, if you're a Zappa fan, to go and look at everything that comes up and label it or suppress it. And I think the number one way that's going to happen, the most effective thing, is going to be when Google, or particularly Google, but anybody who runs ads, that's how independent media pays for itself, is actual ads that pop up without any connection, without any judgment call. You can have a truther prepper website with Kroger ads on it, you know, because people are not going to hold. They don't expect the advertisers to judge, censor, curate the news. Well, Google's going to do that now, or that's what it looks like where we're headed. And I think that was the main purpose of this fake news story, was to tee us up for a highly controlled information environment. The last 8 years have been about controlling our information, about them collecting it all, about surveillance. I think going forward, the next phase of that is going to be censorship and propaganda, about them controlling the information we see. So great question. Thank you so much, Reggie, for the call. It's been a great year. You can get all our podcasts from the year at thepropreport.com, or you can go to my website, MonicaPerezShow.com. And we will be back next Saturday, January 7th from 5 to 7. This is Monica Perez.